Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Behind the Cape. I'm data superhero Keith Belanger, and I'm super excited. For this episode, we have a panel of other superheroes who are going to join us on today's topic, and I am not going to introduce them all. I'm going to give them the opportunity and to introduce themselves, and we'll start with you, Augusto. Go right ahead.
Really? Hi everyone, data superhero Augusto. I'm based out of Toronto. Been in this journey on Snowflake for 4 years and have the advanced architect and data engineer. And I'm also a Snowflake SME, and I essentially help write questions and help guide the exam.
Great, thanks for joining us.
Hello, everyone. This is Jyoti Pathak. I am in Phoenix, Arizona. I have 20 plus years of experience in data analytics and working with Snowflake last, I would say, 7 years or 8 years. And recently I started my own venture, and I'm a proud 3 times data superhero. And I am actually in this show as an aspirant for one of these certifications. So I'm going to learn a lot and I'm going to ask a lot of questions. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us.
All right, I'm next. Hi, everyone. My name is Fred Langlais. I'm based in Montreal, Canada, also a data superhero. About 6 years, 7 years, maybe 6 years of experience with Snowflake. And I have also a few certifications. So I have the core and I have all five of advanced. So we'll talk about what's available as certifications today on the panel.
Great, thanks for joining us.
Cool. Hi everyone. I'm Chris Hastie. I'm a data practice lead for a company called Interworks. So we're a services partner for Snowflake and a bunch of others, basically a services consultancy. I've been working with Snowflake since 2018. I've been a Snowflake data superhero since 2019, and I've been one of the SnowPro SMEs since 2020. So I've actually been involved in the creation of all of the Snowflake exams to date, apart from the data science one, because just enough time. But other than those, yeah, and I hold them all as well.
Great, thanks everybody for joining us. And Chris, I'll be hitting you up for the keys and the answers to all the exams afterwards. So great. Um, so let's start with you, Fred. Let's start at a high level, kind of a softball question. What are the different certifications that are available from Snowflake?
Yeah, that's a great question to start. So for a long time, there was 6 exams available. So I'm going to start with this. So the SnowPro Core certification has always been the foundational exam that you need to start with first in order to get access to the advanced exam, which will test, the core foundational knowledge of Snowflake, really from a broad perspective. Kind of making sure that people understand the technology and how to use the platform, which then would bring you to the advanced certifications. There's 5 certifications available as of now. There's the architect, there's the administrator, data engineer, data analyst, and data scientist, which are more persona based, if you want, which will require more hands-on experience. So you would talk usually about a few years of experience on Snowflake, and which would test your skill set on these specific topics, right? So we're now deep diving onto a certain feature set, if you want, of Snowflake with these 5 advanced exams. The education team has put up recently new exams, which bring a different type of knowledge onto the mix, which will be very interesting for people that want to go this route. There's now 2 new specialty exams that will test your knowledge really more from a technical perspective on a very specific feature set. So these are the specialty exam for Snowpark and for native apps. So again, something that is very specific to a feature set in Snowflake. And brand new, I think it was launched last week, last but not least, the SnowPro Associate, which will be a lighter version to the core and will help to validate knowledge really of essential Snowflake skills, but could be a good way to start for people that have not tried certifications yet or don't have maybe the technical depth of maybe going for the core exam.
Great. Definitely a lot of opportunities for folks. So Chris, with all these exams and all this stuff, how could one like educate? What kind of materials could one use to get prepared for these types of all these exams?
So the main thing I would say that kind of underpins a lot of this stuff is each exam has a very clearly defined study guide that walks through all the content that's covered. Um, Naturally, I would say start with SnowPro Core or Snowflake Associate if you prefer. But I would go through that study guide and see what is in there in general, and the different pieces will tell you in a way how much you already know and how much you have to go away and learn. But those pair really well with a lot of the Snowflake Learn content that's out there. So Snowflake have a bunch of free content on the Learn platform, and that will walk you through all of the core Snowflake functionality and actually a bunch of the advanced functionalities in there as well. So I would definitely start by doing that training if you haven't already. I think it's useful regardless of whether you're going to do the exams. And then I would look at that study guide, fill in any gaps, and then I would say just go for it. Personally, I would rather sit the exam and fail. I know it sounds. I'd rather sit it and fail, know where I went wrong, and then sit it again, than go and spend an additional 5 weeks preparing for something, and then when I sit it, I go, oh, that wasn't so bad. It's useful having that knowledge, but everyone's got their own way of doing it. But personally, that's what I'd recommend.
Great. Um, Augusto, I got a question for you. Snowflake is always so much is always coming out in terms of new releases and new stuff. What does that mean in terms of the exams, like the turnover? Like how, if there's something new, will it be on the exam tomorrow, or is there a period of time before it is on the exam? I think we lost you, Augusto.
There are periods of
There you go.
time, because it would be it's kind of hard to keep up if you see that they're releasing sometimes two times a week. It is, but I think the guidance they have from the exam team is that once something makes it to general availability, then 6 months later can go into the exam. And I think also, like, think of how like how the exam, like there are people like us doing questions and people from Snowflake, and we're contributing questions to it. So like even if something new came, it usually taking a bit of time to make it to exam anyway. It can take sometimes even a year to make it to the exam. Depends on when they're refreshing, because I think they're always trying to keep the exam refreshed. So usually, like I think it's like at least every 2 years, sometimes every year, they're changing it significant parts. Um, so yeah, like, so you don't have to worry too much about the newer things. Has to be in general availability at least for 6 months to make it into the exam.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good to know. So I don't need to put my focus on, you
No.
know, Cortex AI. I don't need to be an expert on it
Cortex
just
AI
yet, right?
is already in the
Oh
exam,
no,
I think, because it's in GA for more than 6 months, I believe.
it feels like it's still new. That's
Yes,
funny.
the problem is the feature. The devil is in the details. There's so many new features coming almost on a weekly basis that, uh,
Yeah,
what do you mean Cortex AI is in the exam? You know.
yeah, exactly.
But
So So Jyoti, you're kind of in your, I guess, the early journeys of your the certification adventure. What goes through your mind? Like, what are some things that you're thinking about that now that you have the other folks here that you would want to know?
Yeah, so I have taken some and I'm aspiring to take some. And I agree with Chris that it's better to take the exam and fail because, my experience so far has been that there are lots of courses available in the market. But you can take those courses very well. It enhances your knowledge. But when you actually sit on the exam, you will encounter lots of questions and problem sets or information that you really need when you are mostly in deep with that technology. So my experience so far has been that And that's what I wanted to ask to you guys as well, who have been ahead of me, that how do you prepare for those dive type of activities? Because not we all are not working day in and day out, like being a data scientist or being, a data engineer or being an architect, but we aspire to take those exams. And we aspire to, gather that knowledge because, hey, we are all data superheroes, right? We set examples. So I would, that has been my experience, Keith, that not everything is available in those courses out in the market. And I will be, curious to know how to acquire or gather that knowledge.
Is there anybody can help her out? Jump in.
I'll happily jump in just to add to what I said before, and then other people can add on as well. The main thing, just when you talked about, sitting down and failure, one of the other things that is out there are practice exams. There are a bunch of practice exams that are not Snowflake supported, that other people have put together, and in my opinion, they're not really worth the time because the content on the exam may have changed, or just the structure's different, or you know personally, I just don't find it useful. If you just want to build up your knowledge, great, but it's not, in my opinion, useful for getting these certifications. Um, there is another one in terms of Snowflake themselves have practice exams that are like the Snowflake sponsored practice exams. They are at a reduced cost to sitting the actual exam, and they allow you to go through all the process and all that stuff and get that kind of practice in. Um, Personally, I'm not particularly fussed about doing those practice exams either, because if you pay whatever money, sit the practice exam, and pass the practice exam, you go, oh, great, I've passed, but it doesn't really mean anything. And then you still have to go and pay and sit the actual exam. And in my opinion, just sit the actual exam. And if you fail it, then sit it again. But I don't see the benefit in passing a practice, because if you pass the practice, you probably would have passed the actual exam. That's the whole point of it. That's the main thing I'd say. But if you have anything anyone else wants to add.
That was good. I have a question for you, Fred. Um, you could take, you can go to a training center, sit, take a class, or take the test, not a class. But there's also the online. What's the difference? Is there any difference in the experience or even in the exam itself between online or at a center?
Yeah, great question. So the real exam is proctored, right? Which means that it is monitored. It's normal. So there's someone that's going to make sure that people are not cheating, and the process is maintained, and everything with the exam is okay. Going back to Chris's point, the practice exams are not proctored, which means that you can take them at home with a setup that is maybe not convenient for the real exam. It could help you to lower your level of stress, get used to the exam process. There's still real questions that have been vetted by Snowflake, and could give you a little bit of practice of just taking an exam. Some of us have not taken exams since we were in school, right? So it can be a lot. So back to your question, there's two ways to take the exam. Either you take it online or you take it at a test center. Most large cities will have test centers available. The test center, what is convenient is that you go in, everything has been set up on your behalf. You leave your phone at the entrance or something like that, right? And you take the exam. It can reduce the amount of stress of having to prepare your desk at home, because if you want to take the test online for people that don't have a test center or are not able to travel and whatnot, there are specific requirements that you need to fulfill, which are not the end of the world, but they're going to ask you to have a table that is more or less empty of anything, not have a secondary screen, being able to use a computer with their software that you need to download and install, that basically takes control, if you want, of your laptop for the time of the exam. It is, in my opinion, really convenient because you can still do it from home, but just understanding that some people have kids at home, a little bit of noise, and also you need to be in a space that is quiet in order to do your exam online.
I can vouch for trying to do it online myself, and I could not meet their qualifications because I had too much stuff on my computer that made it look would make it look like suspicious from just the working. So I couldn't clean enough stuff off my computer that I said no. This wants they pretty much want a dumb terminal for me to do this exam. I went to a training center instead because so I will agree that they really even online, they're going to make sure your cameras, nobody's in direction, which way you're looking. So those are good things to take
Yeah.
into consideration.
I want to add to that is taking a test is stressful, even though you are well prepared. But what I have found that most of the Snowflake exams have plenty of time for you to answer those questions. Mostly, you end up surplus where you can go back and review some of the questions. So the time management is not that hard, but the stress and the mental management of the test itself is hard for some folks. So it's better that even if you're taking a practice test, it's better that you actually pretend that you are in a test, and you have all that time management, as well as you just pretend that you are in a test center, or maybe taking it online without any kind of like disturbance or anything like that, because that is very important. That worked for me as well. When I was taking some of the tests, I had to prepare mentally because we are not in school, we are not taking tests every day. So sitting there for an hour and a half, and just focusing on those questions one by one, and you're not reaching out for your phone, or you're just saying, okay, I'll do it later, let's check my email or something like that. So you have to get out of that my mentality and just focus on the test, and that practice is important.
Gotcha. Augusto, question for you.
Right.
Go
Before
ahead,
we move
Chris.
on,
Go ahead.
I'd just love to add just 2 points, one on the reviewing exams and one on the scheduling. There is a middle ground. You don't always have to go to a test center. Normally, at any Snowflake conferences, there is a kind of mobile test center that appears as well. Personally, I think that's a really great way to do it because one, you can be part of the whole Snowflake community in general by going to the conference. But two, you can just go and sit and chill out in the SnowPro area and have a chat with everybody there before your exam. And, any last little bit, so if there's any questions you're not sure of,
Yeah.
you can go and celebrate your exam afterwards in that same place if you want to.
Or
But
run out.
Okay. Failure, Chris.
there is swag that you get, like based on how many exams you've passed and that kind of thing. So if you've passed a core exam, you get like a little sticker and a notebook, that kind of thing. So if you pass your exam and then go to the Snowflake area, you can say, look, I've just passed it, and you can get some nice extra bonuses. On the reviewing of exams, one thing I would like to raise is there is an option when you're sitting them proctored where you can leave feedback for specific questions. In fact, you can probably do it on site as well. But the portal that you're sitting the exam through does allow you to leave specific feedback on questions. If you see something you don't think is accurate, then you can leave a comment on it. And sometimes this can have an impact. I know of at least one case where someone got a fail, but then they had left comments on a couple of questions, and then a few weeks later, they actually were separately contacted again that they actually had a pass because that one question was literally the thing that made the difference. And yeah, so Snowflake are very good at listening to that. A fun little caveat to that, I very often leave comments on questions. I get quite, moody when I'm not confident in answering a question. I get quite moody. I leave a response to it. I have been guilty of leaving comments on my own questions. A great little chat with the certification team. So yeah, just know they are looked at.
Okay, great. That's good information. So Augusto, now I've passed an exam. How long is my certification good for? Is it for the same for every certification or is it different?
2 years. You
2 years?
got it for 2 years, and then you have to do what's it called, that recertification exam. Luckily, it's kind of, I think the exam is 70 or 75 questions originally, if I'm not mistaken. So the recertification is about 40 questions. So you get about half of the exam. on your recertification. Yeah.
And how much time do you have to do that recertification before you would have to probably go take
I
the
think it's
the
actually the
full?
same time. The time, I don't feel like, at least for me, maybe it's not a fair comparison. I've never found that time has been of essence on the Snowflake exams. I've done other exams and not Snowflake. That time was a crunch, but not this one. Because I think 80 questions is a lot, but is just enough to do it. I think you have 2 hours and 40 questions. Like, it's a lot less. It's still hard. Don't get me wrong. I think the exams, and they get exponentially harder until you get to the architect. Exam. It's very hard to pass. Even as, like, I think a strategy that a lot of us apply. Like, I will often, rather than study too much, I'll do like 3 or 4 days of study and go. For example, I'll take Friday, no meetings, study all weekend, and do an exam on Monday morning, knowing that I may pass or fail. I may not be ready, but it's okay. And then what I do is I see that if I got over 600 points, which is like roughly 60%, you need a 75% passing mark. I'll take the exam right after in 10 days, because it means I was so close that I missed a couple of topics. So I would study through those 10 days the topics and just go back and do it. Of course, we have the benefits that our jobs pay for the exam. So for people that is not happening, could be a little bit more tricky understanding. Yeah.
Yeah,
I have
you
a
had your hand up,
question.
Jody. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question, Augusto, Chris, and Fred. And Keith, to yourself as well. When you said, and this is for the audiences and for me as well, when you say, okay, you took Friday, meeting day, and then Saturday, Sunday, you prepared for the exam. What actually you were doing?
I think is unique to each person. Like, for example, I don't like watching videos. Uh,
Mhm.
I can watch. So if I never use technology, I may use video at accelerated pace to learn and then practice. But I don't like watching videos. I use the PDF that describes the exam, and I read the documentation from Snowflake. I practice with the quick start guides, and then I'll use exam questions that are outside of Snowflake as a way to show me if there's a topic I really don't know and I need to go read more. And so that's essentially, I will do this for 8 hours a day for 3 days. It's a very crammed way to do it, but I find that to be like the most effective for my style of learning. So it's very much, you have to see what is your style of learning,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I would say I have a similar approach, but it's condensed. I I think I am more cavalier about this by now because I've resat each of these, well, as in recertified them multiple times as well. But my approach is normally I'll sit down, I'll schedule the exam. If I'm on a Friday, then the exam probably won't be available to proctor until a Monday or a Tuesday because I'm in the UK and I need time zones where a proctor is available. So I'll probably say, great, I'll schedule it for the Monday afternoon, and then on the Monday morning, I'll just have a quick skim through the study guide, and then I'll spend my morning reading documentation. But a lot of the questions will ask you things that are detailed in the documentation. So the documentation is a great way to know that because the question will say things like, what is the definition of blah, blah, blah? And the definition will probably match what you read in the documentation if you read it there.
Great.
I can go next. On my style is a little bit different, but every style is good. So I like to prepare a little bit more in advance. I'm the type of person to start to prepare maybe a few weeks ahead. I still like to do the practice exams because, in my opinion, it just tells me if there's an area that I need to look at a little bit more. In the study guide per se, there's links, and these links are really important. Some links go to the documentation, but there's links that will go to community posts or very specific articles about very specific things. This should be a hint that there's going to be one or multiple questions on these topics. Um, Practice is really important as well, right? This is not about learning everything by heart, especially for the advanced exam, even more so for the specialty exam. So I think that doing a little bit of quick starts and maybe a little bit of practice in a Snowflake account, which you do have access, helps basically to um, make sure that you tune your practice towards your learning, and that it will not be about just learning documentation by heart, but it's more going to be about reasoning about the questions, which will be asked often on the advanced exams.
Great. All great advice. I do have one more last question before we wrap it up. Is at the end when you get your results, by chance, does it share with you what questions you did get wrong, or is that a secret that people would have to just figure out on their own?
It does not, unfortunately, because they don't want you to know. I think no exam does. I believe, like
Yeah.
I've done lots. AWS have a CISP as well. Is even worse. You can't even go back. I believe on CISP.
Yeah.
I've seen some exam providers will give you like breakdowns by section. So they might say in this section you got 60% or whatever. But yeah, in Snowflake, no.
Could we add that? Because it will be very helpful, at least by by topic, right? Okay, in architecture, this is you scored poorly in this one, or you scored best in this module type of thing, where the folks would know that where they have to spend more time next.
We can suggest. Yeah, I think I think Fred, you're a SME as well. No, you help if I
Yeah,
remember.
but you're making me doubt, because I think I've seen this before. So I know if the practice exams give you the topics that you need to study, but some form of Snowflake exam will tell you. Maybe we just don't look at the right place, but they're supposed to give you that feedback, to your point.
Okay.
It is very possible that I just open it up, see the password, and go, cool, I've passed, and close it again. Because if I don't, then I'm going to be more worried. But
Exactly.
one thing I will say Snowflake do, which I think is really good, is they've got a very strict mechanism for what can be in a question in the exam. And I think this is some important stuff to know. They've got limitations on things like, well, the main one is every potential answer must be a real thing in Snowflake, which sometimes can make writing questions a real pain. But it means that questions are not designed to trick you, they are designed to test you. For example, if the question was saying something like, what is the schema that contains metadata on a database? And we all know, or most of us know, is the information schema. You won't have information underscore schema, information hyphen schema, information dash dash schema. You would have actual different or real Snowflake objects. So it is about testing knowledge, not trying to catch you out.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Thank you. And information schema comes a lot in the SnowPro exam. Thank you.
Sure does.
Oh, this was fantastic, guys. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I will let everybody who's listening in that we will have any links to any shareable content to direct you in the comments below. But again, I want to thank all of you for joining me on this panel today. This was a great topic, and if anybody wants to look anybody up here on LinkedIn, go ahead and do so. We'll share everybody's links in below as well. But again, thanks everybody. This was a fantastic conversation.
Cool.
Thanks, Tom. Good luck.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.